welcome to Quick Bytes, the lunchtime live stream with your tech integration specialist, Scott Conway. Welcome everyone to today's session on Google Meet. We are going to just kind of briefly show you how to remove a user and mute a user today. I want to kind of get into those two little features. Before we go on, there is a chat bar to the right side of this screen. See it? And it may not be there. So I apologize if the chat session or the chat portion of today's session is not there. But I will try to cover these two simple little things today within Google Meet. I do want to preface this with the fact that this is an organizational demonstration. So there is an admin console that is configuring some of the settings that you're going to see today. So this is if you are an education user and you're using Google Meet, there are some features that have been rolled out by Google to help teachers facilitate these sessions in as much a controlled environment as possible. So I kind of want to just show you those things today and talk about some of the intricacies of dealing with Google Meet. The one thing I want to start by saying is you probably will, although it's available, not want to initiate a Google Meet from a calendar event if you're working with students. It's completely okay if you're going to work with adults with a Google Meet to make the calendar appointment, add the conferencing feature, invite the adults to that calendar event, and then go from there. But if you are using a Google Meet session with students, again, I do not recommend you start it from a calendar event because you lose some of the configuration and the control that you have as a teacher when you do that. So you also, one thing to note, if you initiate it from a calendar event, a student could eventually give that Meet code to an outsider, someone outside your domain, someone outside your organization, and they will be allowed to be let in. So you could potentially allow outsiders into your Google Meet if you use the calendar event. Another reason we do not want to use it with students. So to allow for as much control as possible, we do want you to start a Google Meet from the actual Meet service, and that's what you see on my screen right now. It's meet.google.com. You can directly type that into a URL bar and go directly to the site and start a meeting from here. You also, and just over the weekend, this was released to all EDU users, you also now have an integration within Classroom. So if you have a Google Classroom already set up with all of your students enrolled in it, you can go to the settings page in Classroom. And let me show you real quickly how this works. This integration allows for the ability to turn on, and I'll show it to you here through the gear setting. Down under General, you see it's turned on here, visible to students. You've got the code. You can copy it. You can also reset this code if you want to pick a different code. This code is seen as a nicknamed Meet. So the deal here is when you come in and you start a Google Meet from meet.google.com and you give it a name, you are giving it what they call a nickname. And that is the type of Meet that you have the most control over. So going directly to Google Meet, you can start a nicknamed Meet. The same thing is true for this code that is built into Classroom. This is considered a nicknamed Meet. You can either turn it on or turn it off, make it visible or invisible to the students. But when they come back out here, there's that Meet right there. And although it's a code, a nonsensible code, it is considered nicknamed. So you do have some of those extra provisions. And I'm going to go ahead and start my session. You can see I have the information that pops up here. I've disabled my camera, but that is now a Google Meet session, and I have another user who, let me see if I can bring this in and get this to work for us. Here we go. So I am going to also join as this student. Copy the joining info. Okay, I am going to portray a student now who is copying the code. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. And now this is off screen, but you can, I'm just going to get this set up and disable the mic and the video. All right, you're getting echo. I'm going to turn that off. Okay, so here we go. So now I've got the two users in here, and I've got myself on the right, and I've got the sample student on the left. And again, if a user outside the domain tries to log in at this point and join my session, they're not going to be able to because this nicknamed session only allows internal users. So I've got my student in there, I've got myself. Because I am the Meet organizer, I have some of the capabilities that you're about to see, and that is to mute the user and also remove the user. So to do these two functions, I'm going to come to the upper right hand corner to the people icon, and out from the side you're going to see this little bar slide out, and you can see all of the users in here. Now this user is already muted because I was getting the feedback I'm portraying that individual, but you would literally just click the little down arrow, and below it you can see you can pin that user to the screen, so you can kind of put them front and center. And then you've got the mute icon. Now I've already muted this individual because I muted myself as the student, but if the student is talking or you need to mute someone purposely, you can come right in here, and as the Meet organizer you can mute them. Now, if the student is doing something that's inappropriate and you need to completely remove them, then to the right, this little circle with the slash through it is remove, and you can literally remove that user. And you can say remove .student from the call. Yes, click remove. Now, the rest of the students remain in that meeting with you, and you can carry on as such. I will let you know that the student could attempt to rejoin and rejoin with the code. And if that becomes the next problem, then you may need to just tell the rest of your students, I'm sorry, we're having some difficulties with this today. We're going to shut this session down and we'll try again later or on the next day. And then you would obviously deal with that student separately and not in the middle of your Google Meet. But you can quickly remove a student. You can also mute a student. If you've got a student who unknowingly just has their microphone on and a lot of noise is going on in the background, mute that student. You know, that would be one quick way to do that. Behaviorally, though, if you need to remove a student quickly, you've got the ability to do that. Unfortunately, there is no way to disable the camera temporarily or for a student like you can the microphone. You can either mute their microphone or you can remove them entirely from the session. And again, they could potentially rejoin your session and become a bigger nuisance or problem. And at that point, you would then just shut the whole session down. So today's session, just as this, just to show you what it looks like to be able to remove a user and mute a user and some of the issues surrounding that, some of the intricacies surrounding that. But again, this is something that does or is available to you as a teacher, as the Meet organizer. Again, I want to reiterate that if you're working with students, you should go directly to meet.google.com. Start your meeting that way, or better yet, use the integration right now in Classroom that allows you to set your code and allows your students to join from there. Both of those ways of initiating a Google Meet will afford you the extra capabilities of controlling your Meet. The option to create a calendar event and start a meeting from there would best be used with other staff members, other adults, and not with students. I apologize for the lack of chat today. I don't have any questions, so hopefully I've answered everything or at least shared everything possible with you regarding the mute user and remove user, and I hope you join us for the next session.